Good morning, Ms Mazur's class. The first book we're going to read this week is Christmas in Camelot. Chapter 1, A Royal Invitation. Sunlight had faded from the late afternoon sky. Puffy snow clouds were moving in. "Let's hurry, I'm cold," said Jack. He and Annie were walking home from school. Their Christmas vacation had just begun. "Coo, coo." "Wait," said Annie. "Look." She pointed to a white bird standing on a bare tree branch at the end of the woods. The bird was staring straight at them. "It's a dove," said Jack. "It's a messenger," said Annie, "from Morgan." "No," Jack said, afraid to get his hopes up. They hadn't seen Morgan Le Fay in a long time. He really missed her. "Yes," said Annie, "she has a mission for us. I can feel it." In the hush of the cold twilight, the dove spread its wings and flew into Frog Creek Woods. "Come on," said Annie. "The treehouse is back." "You're just hoping," said Jack. "I'm knowing," said Annie. She ran to the woods and followed the white dove. "Oh, brother," said Jack, but he took off after Annie. Even in the growing darkness, they easily found their way. They zigzagged between bare trees and ran over frozen ground until they came to the tallest oak tree in the woods. "See," said Annie, pointing to the top of the tree. Yeah, whispered Jack. There it was, the magic treehouse. "Morgan!" shouted Annie. Jack held his breath, waiting to see the enchantress at the treehouse window, but Morgan did not appear. Jack grabbed the rope ladder and started up. Annie followed. When they climbed inside the treehouse, Jack saw something lying on the floor. It was a scroll, rolled up and tied with a red velvet ribbon. Jack picked up the scroll and unrolled it. The thick yellowed paper shimmered with large gold writing. "Wow, Morgan sent us a really fancy note," said Annie. "It's an invitation," said Jack. "Listen." "Dear Jack and Annie, please accept this royal invitation to spend Christmas in the kingdom of Camelot." "Christmas in Camelot?" said Annie. "I don't believe it." "Cool," whispered Jack. He pictured a beautiful glowing castle lit with candles and filled with knights and ladies, feasting and singing. "We're going to celebrate Christmas with Morgan and King Arthur," Annie said. "And Queen Guinevere." "Yeah," said Jack. "And the Knights of the Round Table like Sir Lancelot. Let's go. Where's the book?" They looked around the treehouse for a book about Camelot. The only book they saw was the Pennsylvania book that always brought them home. "That's strange," said Jack. "Morgan didn't send a book about Camelot with the royal invitation. How does she expect us to get there?" "I don't know," said Annie. "Maybe she forgot." Jack picked up the invitation. He read it again. He turned it over, hoping to find more information. The back of the scroll was blank. He handed the invitation to Annie. "She must have forgotten," he said. "Darn," said Annie, staring at the gold writing. "I really wish we could go to Camelot." The tree branches rustled. The wind began to blow. "What happened?" said Jack. "I don't know," said Annie. "Wait a minute. You were holding the invitation and you made a wish." The wind blew harder. That must have made the magic work, cried Annie. Jack felt a surge of joy. We're going to Camelot, he said. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, and then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. This is Camelot. Jack shivered. He could see his breath in the dim light. Annie was staring out the window. This is Camelot? Jack looked out with her. The treehouse had landed in a grove of tall, bare trees. A huge, dark castle loomed against the gray sky. No lights shone from its windows. No banners waved from its turrets. Wind whistled through its tall towers, sounding sad and lonely. It looks deserted, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. I hope we came to the right place. Jack pulled out his notebook and pencil. He wanted to write a description of the dark castle. Hey, I see someone, said Annie. Jack looked out the window again. The woman was crossing the castle drawbridge. She wore a long cloak and carried a lantern. Her white hair blew in the wind. Morgan, said Annie and Jack together. They laughed with relief. Morgan hurried over to the frost-covered ground towards the grove of trees. Annie, Jack, is that you? She called. Of course. Who did you think? Shouted Annie. She started down from the treehouse. Jack threw his notebook into his backpack. He followed Annie down the rope ladder. When they reached the icy ground, they ran to Morgan, and they both threw their arms around her. I was looking out the window in the castle and saw a bright flash in the orchard, said Morgan. What are you doing here? You didn't send the treehouse for us? Asked Jack. With a royal invitation to spend Christmas in Camelot? No, said Morgan. She sounded alarmed. But the invitation was signed with an M. I don't understand, said Morgan. We're not celebrating Christmas in Camelot this year. You aren't? Said Jack. Why not? Asked Annie. A look of sadness crossed Morgan's face. Do you remember when you visited my library and gave King Arthur the hope and courage to challenge his enemy? She said. Sure, said Jack. Well, Arthur's enemy was a man named Morfred. After you left, Arthur defeated him, but not before Morfred's dark wizard cast a spell all over the whole kingdom. The spell robbed Camelot of all its joy. What? All its joy? Yes, said Morgan. For months Camelot has been without music, without celebration, and without laughter. Oh, no. What can we do to help? Asked Jack. Morgan smiled sadly. This time, I don't think you can do anything, but perhaps it will lift Arthur's spirits to see you both again. Come, let's get inside the castle. Morgan held up her lantern and started towards the drawbridge. Jack and Annie hurried after her. As they walked through the outer courtyard, the frozen grass cracked under their sneakers. They followed Morgan over the bridge and through a tall gate. There were no signs of life in the castle's inner courtyard. Where is everyone? Annie whispered to Jack. I don't know, he whispered back. Jack really wished they had a book about Camelot. It might help them understand what was going on. Morgan led them to a huge archway with two wooden doors. She stopped and looked at them. I'm afraid no book would help you tonight, Jack, she said. Jack was startled that Morgan had read his thoughts. Why not? Asked Annie. On all your other journeys, you visited real places and times in history, said Morgan. Camelot is different. How? Asked Jack. The story of Camelot is a legend, said Morgan. A legend is a story that begins in the truth, But then imagination takes over. Different people in different times tell the story. They use their imaginations to add new parts. That is how a legend is kept alive. Tonight we'll add our part, said Annie. Yes, said Morgan, and please, I beg you. In the lantern's light, she looked very serious. Do not let the story of Camelot end forever. Keep our kingdom alive. Of course we will, said Annie. Good. Come then, let us go into the great hall and see the king. Morgan lifted up an iron latch and pushed open the heavy doors. Jack and Annie followed her into the dark castle. Chapter 3. The Knights of the Round Table. A pair of torches dimly lit the draughty entrance hall of the castle. Shadows danced on the worn tapestries. Wait here, said Morgan. I will tell the king of your arrival. She headed through the huge stone archway that led to the great hall. Let's peek in, Annie said to Jack. Jack pushed his glasses in place. He and Annie walked quietly over to the big arch and peered in. The ceiling of the great hall towered high. Morgan was talking to King Arthur. Beside the king sat a woman in a plain gray robe. She had pale skin and brown curly hair. Queen Guinevere, whispered Annie. Morgan left the king, and Jack and Annie moved quickly back into the shadows. A moment later, Morgan appeared. I told the king that 2 special friends of his had just arrived. She said, Come with me. As they walked with Morgan through the great hall, Jack shivered. The huge room was drafty and damp. There was no fire in the fireplace. The stone floor was so cold that Jack could feel the chill through his sneakers. They stopped near the round table. King Arthur stared at them with his piercing gray eyes. Greetings from Frog Creek, Annie said to the king and queen. Annie bowed, and Jack bowed too. The queen smiled, but King Arthur did not. Your Majesty, you remember Jack and Annie, said Morgan. You met them last summer in my library. Indeed, I shall never forget them, King Arthur said softly. Greetings, Annie. Greetings, Jack. How do you come to be in Camelot on such a bleak night? We came in the magic treehouse, said Annie. A shadow crossed the king's face. He looked at Morgan. No, Your Majesty, I did not use my magic to bring them here. Perhaps a bit of magic still lingers in the treehouse, and it traveled on its own. What's going on? Jack wondered. Why does King Arthur seem unhappy about the magic treehouse? King Arthur looked back at Jack and Annie. However you have come, you are welcome to my kingdom, he said. He turned to the queen. Guinevere, these are the 2 friends who once gave me hope and courage in a time of need. Queen Guinevere smiled again, but there was a sad look in her eyes. I have heard much about you, she said. I have heard about you too, said Annie. Allow me to present my knights, said King Arthur. Sir Bors, Sir Kay, Sir Tristram. As the king named each knight, Jack and Annie nodded shyly. The knights nodded at them in return. Jack waited to hear the name Sir Lancelot, the most famous of Camelot's knights. But the king never said it. And finally, Sir Belvedere and Sir Gawain. The king then turned to 3 empty chairs at the table. And there once sat 3 who are lost to us now. Lost how? Wondered Jack. You may sit in their places and join our dinner. Thank you. Following Morgan around the table, Jack read the names carved on the backs of 3 empty chairs. Sir Lancelot, Sir Galahad, and Sir Percival. Jack took off his backpack and sat down in Sir Lancelot's place. As he sat, tall and straight in the heavy wooden chair, Jack looked at the king and his knights. They were gnawing meat off bones and slurping wine from heavy goblets. They ate without manners or delight. Jack really wanted to take notes. He reached into his backpack under the table and pulled out his notebook and pencil. But before he could write a word, a serving boy brought more food. Jack quickly put his things away. The boy set a greasy slab of beef on a soggy piece of bread in front of him. The food looked terrible. Not much of a Christmas feast, huh? Annie said in a low voice. Jack shook his head. Annie leaned close to Morgan and whispered so the king couldn't hear. What happened to the 3 last night, she said. After Mordred's dark wizard cast a spell, the king sought help from the magicians of Camelot. They told him he must send his knights on a quest to the other world to recapture our kingdom's joy. What's the other world? Asked Jack. It's an ancient enchanted land beyond the edge of the earth, the place where all the magic first begins. Wow, whispered Annie. The king chose his 3 bravest knights to journey there. When they did not come back, Arthur turned against his magicians. He blamed magic for all of Camelot's woes. Hence, he has banned magic of any kind from the kingdom forever. But you're a magician, whispered Annie. Did the king turn against you too? Arthur and I have a long friendship. He has allowed me to stay in the castle as long as I promise not to practice the art of magic ever again. A feeling of dread crept over Jack. So, does that mean the magic treehouse is... Morgan nodded. Yes, banished from Camelot, she said. I'm afraid this will be your last journey, and the last time we'll see each other. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked away. What? The last time we see each other? Forever? Said Annie. Before Morgan could answer, the wooden doors swung open with a bang. A wind rushed through the great hall. The torches and candles flamed brighter, making the shadows leap wildly on the wall. The sound of hoofbeats filled the room. A knight on a huge horse rode through the arched doorway. The knight was dressed all in red, from his shining helmet to the long cloak on his back. His horse was dressed all in green, from the armor that covered his head to the cloth that hung from his saddle. Oh, wow, breathed Annie, a Christmas night. Chapter 4. I have come to see Arthur the king, the Christmas knight said. His deep voice echoed from inside his helmet. His red armor gleamed in the firelight. King Arthur stood. He stared fiercely at the knight, but he spoke in a calm, steady voice. I am Arthur the king, he said. Who are you? The knight didn't answer Arthur's question. So, you are the legendary King Arthur of Camelot, he said in a mocking voice. And these must be the famous Knights of the Round Table. Yes, said King Arthur, and again I ask, who are you? The Christmas knight still didn't answer Arthur's question. The spell of the dark wizard has robbed Camelot of its joy, said the Christmas knight. Has it robbed you and your men of your courage as well? You dare to question our courage? King Arthur said in a low, angry voice. Camelot is dying, the Christmas knight boomed. Why has no one journeyed to the other world to recapture its joy? I have sent my best knights on such a quest, said King Arthur. They never returned. Then send some more, thundered the Christmas knight. No, shouted King Arthur, pounding his fist on the table. Never again will I feed good men to the magic and monsters of the outer world. Jack felt a chill of fear. What monsters? When you choose your fate, said the Christmas knight, if you will send no one else to the other world, all that your kingdom has gained through time, all beauty, music, wonder, and light, all that Camelot has ever been or could ever be, will be lost and forgotten forever. No, shouted Annie. Shh, Annie, said Jack. The Christmas knight turned to the knights at the table. Who will go? He boomed. We will, we will. Yes, we'll go on the quest, Annie yelled. She jumped up. No, cried Morgan. Never, said the king. Annie, said Jack. He leapt up from the chair and tried to grab her. Yes, thundered the Christmas knight. He pointed his red gloved hand at Annie and Jack. The youngest of all, these two, they will go. You are mocking us, King Arthur shouted. They will go, boomed the knight. His words echoed throughout the hall. Oh no, thought Jack. Yes, said Annie. She pulled Jack towards the Christmas knight. King Arthur turned to his men. Stop them! Several knights started to rush towards Jack and Annie. The Christmas knight raised his gloved hand high in the air. In an instant, the room fell deathly quiet. Everyone around the table was as still as a statue. King Arthur looked like a statue of a furious king. Queen Guinevere looked like the statue of a worried queen. The Knights of the Round Table looked like statues of fierce knights, and Morgan looked like the statue of a caring friend. Her mouth was open as if she were calling out to Jack and Annie, but no sound came from her lips. No sound at all. Chapter 5. Rhymes of the Christmas Night. Morgan, said Annie. She ran to the table. She touched Morgan's cheek, then quickly pulled back her hand. She's cold. She's as cold as ice, said Annie, tears filling her eyes. Annie turned to the Christmas knight in a fury. What did you do to Morgan? She said. Bring her back. Do not fear, said the Christmas knight. His voice was softer and kinder. She will come back to life after you completed your quest. What exactly is our quest? Said Jack. You must journey to the other world, said the Christmas knight. There you will find a cauldron. The cauldron is filled with the water of memory and imagination. You must bring a cup of water back to Camelot. If you fail, Camelot will never come back to life. Never. How do we do all that? Said Annie. Remember these 3 rhymes, said Christmas knight. Wait, let me write 'em down, said Jack. His hands trembled as he pulled out his notebook and pencil. He looked at the Christmas knight. Okay, I'm ready, he said, gripping his pencil. Made Jack feel stronger. The knight's voice rang out from inside his helmet. Beyond the iron gate, the keepers of the cauldron wait. Jack wrote down the knight's words. Okay, what's next? He said. The Christmas knight went on. 4 gifts you will need. The first from me, then a cup, a compass, and finally a key. Cup, compass, key. Got it, he said. The Christmas knight's voice boomed again. If you survive to complete your quest, the secret door lies to the west. Jack copied down the last rhyme and then looked up at the knight. Anything else? He asked. Without a word, the knight pulled off his red cloak. He dropped it to the floor. It fell silently into a heap at Jack and Annie's feet. The Christmas knight snapped his horse's red reins, then galloped out of the great hall. Chapter 6. The White Comet. Once the night was gone, the candles and torches in the great hall grew dimmer. A bitter chill crept through the room. "What do these 3 rhymes mean?" said Jack, looking at his notebook. "And who are the keepers of the cauldron? What secret door?" "I don't know," said Annie. "I just know we have to save Morgan." She gathered the red cloak up in her arms. "We've got our first gift. Let's go." "Wait, we should figure this out first," said Jack. "No, we should go." She turned and headed for the archway. Jack pushed his glasses into place and looked back at the round table, at the frozen king and queen, at the frozen knights, and at Morgan. He loved Morgan. She was their great friend and teacher. If he and Annie did not go to their quest, Morgan's story and the stories of Camelot and all the stories about the magic treehouse would end forever. Jack took a deep breath. He put his notebook into his pack. Then he turned towards the archway. "Annie," he said. She was gone. "Annie, wait," he shouted. "Wait." Jack ran out the great hall. "Annie, I'm here," she said quietly. "I'm waiting." She was standing at the end of the entrance hall, peering outside. "How do we get to the other world?" she said. "Maybe the treehouse can take us there," said Jack. "Come on." Together, Jack and Annie hurried through the inner courtyard of the castle and over the drawbridge. They ran over the frozen ground to the moonlit grove of trees. Clutching the red cloak, Annie started up the rope ladder. Jack followed. They climbed inside the treehouse and sat on the floor. Annie picked up the royal invitation. "Close your eyes, I'll make a wish." Jack closed his eyes. He was shivering from the cold. "I wish we could go to the other world." The bare branches of the tree rattled in the wind. "I think it's working," whispered Annie. The wind stopped blowing. Jack opened his eyes. He and Annie looked out the window. The dark castle loomed against the sky. They were still in Camelot. "It didn't work," said Jack, his teeth chattering. "Yes, it did. Look down." Standing below the treehouse was the biggest deer Jack had ever seen. The deer was staring at them with amber eyes. His huge antlers seemed to glow in the cold moonlight. Most amazing of all, the deer was completely white as the new fallen snow. "A white stag," said Jack. Puffs of frosty blue air blew from the stag's nostrils. He stepped towards the treehouse and shook his giant head. "He's come to take us on our journey," said Annie. "People don't ride deer," said Jack. But Annie had already started down the rope ladder. Jack watched from the window as she walked to the stag and spoke softly. The stag knelt. Annie climbed on its back. "Come on," she called to Jack. "Bring the cloak." "Okay, okay." He gathered up the heavy velvet cloak, clutching it against his chest. He climbed down the rope ladder. He hurried over to Annie and the white stag. "Put on the cloak and climb on behind me." Jack put the cloak over his backpack. He pulled it around his shoulders and buttoned it at the neck. As the cloak fell down around his body, the soft, smooth cloth made him feel warm and safe. "Ready?" said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. He climbed on the stag's back behind Annie. The white stag slowly stood up. Annie leaned forward, put her arms around his neck. Jack leaned forward too and held on to Annie. The red velvet cloak draped over both of them, falling past their feet. The white stag stepped gracefully over the frozen grass. He walked through the outer gates of the castle. He blew out a puff of air, then broke into a leaping run. Jack held on tightly to Annie as the stag dashed across the frost-covered field. He jumped over hedgerows and stone walls. He bounded across icy stream. Okay, we will have to finish that for today, but we'll do some more tomorrow.